I'm gonna cut you through. How do you want to, what is your example of something that you want to take into that future? Like how could you make it more concrete so that we all hear one example that we can start thinking about at home?
Yeah, I don't know an example.
Like, would you like to,
yeah, so maybe actually I stop here. Maybe people have examples. I'm here. Yeah. Listen. It's
Thuthuka, you were responding, so maybe you want to continue.
No, not at all.
No?
Am I speaking?
No, you're speaking.
Oh, sorry. No, I just wanted to ask you, Maaike, in terms of sort of, because I know in the proposal you'd sort of spoken about using case studies to come to some sort of like future conclusion about how we can think about care and humanizing the curatorial practice to sort of look at sort of like future perspectives and all of this, right? And centralizing COVID as a way of thinking of the new. I just want some clarity in terms of like, what are we trying to do here? Is it questions around what, you know, are we building answers, or is this an opportunity to put questions into a pot and potentially let that sort of allow us to revel in the questionness of the question of what is COVID doing to care, humanness, and the art world?
I think it's both, because I think you cannot really pose the questions that will lead us further without kind of checking in with reality, like what Lara does, talking about her neighbors. And then, I think it's good to always connect it to examples, because otherwise we just stay on this kind of analytical imaginary plane. And I think it's much more interesting to think like, if you talk to your neighbors and you notice that it's fine to do a Skype meeting with your kids in between and making some coffee, maybe in 5 months, it's still good to do that. So how do we create structures that allow for that space, for instance? So I think it's a kind of combination of the two. But you can also just pose a few statements. That's totally fine. So go ahead.
Oh no, carry on. I'll come back.
Okay. Geir, would you like to add?
Sure. I mean, like the proposition of the care in the art world, I think is brings up a lot of questions, some similar to what's already been discussed, because the art world thrives on difference, you know, so it's about being visible and being, you know, the number one institution, the number one independent curator or whatever. Also, when it comes to the market, when it comes to sales and so on, it's about difference. So like the Andrea Fraser text, which correlates the Gini index about income disparity in countries and the growth of the art world. So the art world is big in countries where the income disparity is big. So in Norway, where the income disparity is quite low, the art market isn't very solid. So there's a different form of thinking about the art, and the artist has many unions to organize, and there's a different government structure as well. So it's all of these different art worlds that are contained in the art world we're now talking about. And as we can see in the panel, there's many differences, and the precarity is quite different as well. Like the museum that I work for just doubled its acquisitions budget in a way to maintain some sort of economic growth for both the art market and the artists. So, you know, that's only for a very privileged museum to do. I'm looking at all these other museums pausing, laying off people, smaller institutions shutting down, smaller galleries, and so on. So it's just in the sort of paradoxical world we are in, where care is on the order for discussion, and we are living and taking part in a world that thrives on difference and inequality. I can put the details of the article. So Yeah, that was just the opening like statement in order to where my mind is at, because I'm sitting here and I have a paycheck coming in. There's no worries except that my parents will get COVID, you know. So, and then the world is on fire.
Does it allow you to have that privilege? Do you have the feeling you have more space to think about all the other maybe more unequal sides of the art world? And does that give you something that you say, like, I take better care of that part and I want to do that in the future too?
Well, I'm working on a large survey show, and we started out just visiting artists as you would normally take, you know, studio visits with people you're interested in meeting. But then we realized we weren't getting new knowledge, so we just had an open call. And that was hard to push through in the institution in a way, because it's not done. It sort of defeats the purpose of the supreme curator that has the knowledge of everything going on. But then we had the open call. We had 1,200 artists applying, and we picked 70% of the artists in the final show are from the open call. So that's just, of course, it's maybe not relevant to COVID, but it's like, how do other structures function in larger institutions? How do these sort of solidaric open calls work when it comes to defeating the knowledge of the curator or the monolithic power perceived?
Jelili? Can't hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I'm just going to share my personal experience for the past 1.5 months when we start the lockdown here in Lagos.
Yeah.
You need to understand the community that I live, and which is more of a community-based community where everybody know themselves, we are connected, and we're linked. We see ourselves most of the time. We're always together. And every evening, we always come together to do one thing or the other. And anytime we have something, we are many in the space. And suddenly, there is social distance where you cannot meet yourself, where you cannot communicate. It is quite strange to our life, completely strange. And it's a kind of an isolation where everybody begins to feel so sad that you can't see the next person. You can't even feel the next person's space, which is very, very quiet on us. So as an artist, there is no way I could produce anything at this moment because the social structure is collapsed, and the interaction of human interaction is completely limited. So it brings vacuum, and the vacuum brings more pains when most of the people cannot feed themselves. So as a community leader, care becomes really important to us. How do you care for ourselves? So in caring, and we should also understand that a lot of people cannot provide for themselves at this moment, is to begin to get food available for people. So we have to meet some people who we think could afford to give donation. And we have to start buying food, and we are distributing to the most vulnerable people. Those who could not afford, are extremely poor. So we're buying some basic food materials and begin to share to them and begin to let them know that we are in together. We're in it together. And that's the most important thing that is COVID is bringing, that we are connected together, irrespective of who you are, irrespective of your race, irrespective of what you belong to or who you belong to, we are all connected. And so it goes into the heart of our own production as an artist. The care, the core element of life, which is humanity. So how do we, as a people, collectively care for ourselves? And that is the most thing that's really really important at this moment. I'm just coming from a meeting where I am the leader of these people here, an association which is like a structure, community development association, So I am the leader of the associations of 110 associations, and which like I am the head of all of them. And so we have to constantly be debating how do we care for our community. The federal government has somehow relaxed the lockdown, but when we discussed, we saw it as a danger that is a community spread of COVID-19 now. And we have to begin to remind of ourselves of hygiene and have to keep to the instructions of keeping safe, and also monitoring our own movement and monitoring people as they move, and monitoring people as they respond to the directive of the government. So that is the way to care. That is the way to let people know that this issue is a collective element, that whatever thing that happened, it spread and it keeps spreading. So that is where the action of our care lies. You know, it's a collective assistance, it's a collective of pains, it's a collective of problems that we are looking at it collectively, and especially in the area of providing food.
And how do you, as an artist, or did you put your practice as an artist on hold, and you have the feeling like it doesn't include in the way that you deal with the situation, or do you, or is there still space to use your artistic approach, or like how you speak to people?
You know, my